actually already have a video on my channel touring all of my old sketchbooks. I still like it, and it's a good video if you want to go hear me talk about how I improved as an artist. But I realized when rewatching the footage that okay, half of the video is like actual art you're looking at, and half of the video is you watching me struggle to flip pages. So I decided to just re-record that video, but cut out all those awkward moments where I'm just like stumbling around with the paper. This video also features my most recent sketchbook that I finished and a smaller one that I forgot to include in that video, but not the sketchbook that I'm working in right now because it's not finished yet. You'll see that soon. Anyways, that's all. Let's get into the video. So I think like most creative people, I drew a ton as a kid. Like if you handed me a random notebook or sheet of paper, I doodle all over it, right? And I know like somewhere in my things I have tons of cheap notebooks where I drew on a few pages and never finished. And maybe some that I did fully fill in. But this sketchbook you're seeing now is the first one I ever made effort to finish because I wanted to keep all my art in one place and become a better artist. This was mostly filled in the summer of 2016, so I was 15 at the time, and I'm 22 now. But this sketchbook in my mind is the start of my art journey, you could say. Like I said before, I've always drawn, but this sketchbook is when I actually started caring and focusing on getting better. I made my art Instagram at this time and was posting stuff online. And I think because of that, you can really see me practicing a lot and trying to learn proportions on these pages. Like, there's not really much idea exploration here. It's really just me trying to figure out how to draw. And searching for my style, which I desperately wanted to figure out at the time because I was consuming so much art YouTube and, artists on Instagram and stuff like that for the first time. Anyways, I actually improved so quickly in the sketchbook, and in the next one you see me go through too. And part of the reason for that, I think, is because I had this challenge for myself at the time where I would draw anyone who submitted a photo of themselves to my art Instagram. And so anywhere on these pages you see written "draw me," that's someone who sent in a photo. And some of them I didn't even write that, but there's tons of people that just sent in photos on Instagram. So I didn't really have a choice of what I was drawing, which I think really helped me improve. And obviously I was just drawing these people for free to practice, but still I felt this pressure, I didn't want to disappoint people. So I think that really helped me improve quickly. I had to figure out how to actually draw faces and stuff because I didn't want people to feel ugly, So I finished that sketchbook, and actually this second one you're looking at now, in 2 months each. I was just drawing so much at that time. Now it takes me a year to fill in a sketchbook. But to be fair, I was basically just drawing in it every time I saw a photo reference I liked, and I took it everywhere. There's so many drawings. I was just sitting waiting for something, and I just had no shame. I'd go on my phone with screenshots I had of random people on my phone and just draw them wherever I was. Now I'm not as entertained just drawing photo references. Usually my sketchbooks are more experimental, testing out ideas or techniques, but I really think at the time if I tried using my sketchbook how I do now, it would have taken me so much longer to improve. Because now I just try and encourage myself to draw whatever I feel like drawing in my sketchbook. If I'm trying to get an idea out, I usually don't even look at references, which is great for me now because I have a baseline understanding of how to draw things. I'm no expert obviously, but sometimes references can just get in the way of an idea because I get focused on trying to stay close to the reference photo and I forget about my actual idea. But if I had just been drawing faces without references back in this time, they wouldn't have looked like faces, and it would have just taken me so much longer to improve, and I know I would have gotten frustrated because things weren't turning out how I wanted them to be. So I might have even quit drawing. I don't know, probably not, but you never know. So I'm really glad I focused so much on learning at the beginning of these sketchbooks. This third sketchbook took me way longer to fill out, over 10 months actually. And the reason for that is because during this sketchbook, I had my first art block, I guess. It's not art block I have now where I want to draw but I can't get myself to do it, like a motivation thing. But at the time, nothing was turning out how I wanted it to, and my art just felt super inconsistent, which was frustrating because I thought I had made so much improvement. And I had made so much improvement in the previous sketchbooks. As it turns out, you can be years into your art journey and still feel like you've made no improvement. But this was my first time experiencing this, so I didn't know it would just keep happening. Anyways, I think the reason I was feeling so frustrated by my skills at the time is because this sketchbook features my first, experimenting with ideas, not just drawing faces or buildings exactly as they are from reference, but trying to get out my own ideas. And like it is now, it wasn't like none of my progress mattered or like I hadn't improved. It was just a period of frustration, and that happens. And eventually I drew something I liked. And then another thing, and then I wasn't blocked or frustrated anymore. Anyways, despite struggling filling this one in, I really love this sketchbook. Like, I love the first two also because they're just so full of memories, me trying to learn and stuff. But this sketchbook really features so much of what was going on in my head at the time and where I started developing my own style, I think. Like, it's kind of funny because I tried so hard to develop a style when filling in those first two sketchbooks, and I wasn't able to until I really stopped depending on references so much and just allowed myself to experiment. But that was only possible after I'd built up the skills, and that experimentation then led me to art block and frustration, but also so much progress as an artist, like not just in skills, but in how I think as an artist and how I document. And yeah, this sketchbook and all the ones after it are really just like a journal. Like, I look back, I know exactly what I was thinking. It documents where I was so well. So when I flip through this, like, even though I know I was art blocked, I don't remember feeling frustrated or not drawing for months. I just remember like the memories of why I was drawing at the time. Like, there's just so much jam-packed into these pages. This next sketchbook I started a few months before turning 18. And that was just such a specific time in my life because I had just moved to an entirely different province, and I think actually I started this sketchbook the first day I started at a new school. So like I said for the last sketchbook, this one really holds so many core memories of how I was feeling and what I was going through, and just so much growth, like not just as an artist but like as a person at the time. And I'd say the sketchbook features the first pages that I still really like and am really proud of. I think it's just because I really consider this one to be a new chapter of art making for me. As you can tell, I was like obsessed with using just like regular Crayola markers and knockoff ones at the time. I think because they were just so quick and thoughtless for me to use, kind of like how paint is now. I don't remember exactly, but I think I got the sketchbook from a random dollar store, and I still have never found paper that holds these type of markers so well. Anyways, I really consider myself to be a mixed media artist. Right now, all I use is gouache, but I go through so many phases, and I really just pick up whatever is conducive at the time to not actually have to think about technique, if that makes sense. Like, whatever just allows me to lay down color and get ideas out quickly is what I use. After working in that big sketchbook, I worked in another big one that you'll see after this little one, but I was working a few different jobs in a good amount of hours this time, and so I made myself a mini sketchbook that I could just fit into any purse and draw in when I had free time at work. So it was kind of used at the same time as the next sketchbook you'll see. It's actually funny, this sketchbook, which I guess you could say is my first homemade sketchbook, I bound it with dental floss. I have no idea why. Like, I definitely had thread at the time, but whatever. It's held up surprisingly well, considering how often I just like threw it in random purses and jackets. This sketchbook is super different from the rest because usually I do most of my drawing at home, like alone in my room, which is something I'm working on now. I want to be going on more art adventures and stuff, but this entire mini sketchbook was filled in when I was away from home. That's why I made it, to bring with me everywhere. And I'm thinking I need to have another small sketchbook like this because it was really helpful, and I still think it's really helpful to train your brain to just draw and be thinking of making every time you have free time instead of, thinking of scrolling and social media and that stuff. Anywho, as I just said, at the same time as working on that mini sketchbook, I worked in this bigger one, which took me a really long time to finish, but that's because I started it when I was still in school and then worked on it in the summer, and then I left on a 4-month trip and I didn't bring it with me. I actually started working in a journal instead, where I wrote a lot and I did most of my drawing at the time. But there's a few loose pages I just threw in here from my trip. Then I came back and I kept working in it, so it really just features like a lot of different periods of my life. At the time of working in this, I was really just not picky with sketchbooks at all. Like, I think this one was also just from the Dollarama or another random dollar store. And so I had no idea when I picked it up that this paper was just horrible with those water-based markers I was obsessed with using in my last sketchbook. Like, the paper just ate away at the nibs, and quickly I figured out I couldn't really use them in here, so I picked up colored pencils. I think it might have been my first time, like, really using it, and just like markers, I became completely obsessed with them. At the time, they were just really conducive to how I wanted to make art and how my brain worked. Like, I still love how these colored pencil pages look, but I'm just not in the space to draw full-on colored pencil pieces right now. I'm sure I'll go back to them, but Like I said, I go through so many art material phases, and right now it's paint. So this sketchbook followed me to when I moved to Montreal with my boyfriend, and just like on my trip, I made most of my art in my journal during that time since it was just like so hectic. I find usually, like even still, I just pick up my journals over my sketchbooks when I'm super busy and not home a lot. But during that period of working in my journal, I started loving using watercolors and ink and other water-based mediums. So when I wanted to get a new sketchbook, I wanted to get one that would be good for mixed mediums, not just, colored pencils or those water-based markers I used to use. I know there's a lot of, proper mixed medium sketchbooks and watercolor sketchbooks out there, but I had an irrational fear at the time of fancy sketchbooks. Like, as you can see from my collection of dollar store sketchbooks, I just avoided good quality stuff because I knew I just wouldn't use it as casually and intuitively, which may still be true, I don't know. So I actually just went to the art store and bought some cheap mixed media paper and bound a sketchbook for myself, which didn't turn out perfect, but I actually really enjoyed using this sketchbook so much that I ended up binding my next one too. Talking about sketchbooks, representing periods of my life, I started this one at the very beginning of quarantine. Like, other than the first page, which I actually painted last, the whole beginning of the sketchbook was a quarantine art challenge, which is what I called it, because I really wasn't drawing much in that first, period of the quarantine, and I think I would consider the sketchbook to be another new chapter in my art making. Like, it just featured so much experimentation, and actually it was right when I started my YouTube channel. But yeah, thank you for watching. See you soon. Bye.